Why the hell did I do this? Last season I made a video called I watched almost every spring 2021 anime, and a lot of you thought I was being misleading because I only watched 12 anime, which I still think was a lot, but you know what? Here's your video. First, no sequels or continuations, we're just talking about new anime. That's going to include Getter Robo Arc because that does require you to read the manga. Second, there are two anime airing late into the season that won't make it into this video, but I will watch them and give you my thoughts in the comments when they do air. As usual, we'll start with the anime I thought were the weakest and move on to the anime I thought were the best. Without further ado, let's start. Adapted from Gakukuzo's manga of the same name, Life Lessons with Urumichi Oniisan is directed by Nobuyashi Nagayama, best known for the upbeat slice of life tale known as Happy Sugar Life. It follows 31-year-old retired gymnast coach Omata Urumichi as he attempts to survive being the host of a children's television program reminiscent of the Wiggles. Only then are we made privy to what we all suspected of the Wiggles, that they are emotionally unstable sociopathic nihilists with a detestment of all living things. Nothing scares me more than writing my thoughts on an anime I ended up enjoying very little, only to find out it is one of the most lauded shows of the season. If you enjoyed this, I highly recommend just skipping to the next anime in the video, lest my words convince you of my terrible taste, you dislike, and then close the browser tab. To me, this felt as if you had Squidward make an anime, but lacking in any of the characters' charm or wit. The premise starts amusing, but quickly devolves into nonsensical brooding, expectant of a middle schooler finding an emo Tumblr community for the first time. It makes an attempt at dark post-ironic humor, but I felt as if it failed heavily to the point that the best moment in its inaugural episode was literally a penis joke. I suppose at the end of the day, your taste in humor may vary, but I'll be passing on Urumichi Oniisan. Mother at Goddess's Dormitory is our ATX airing anime of the season, and if you know what that channel is, then you know what this means. I can't show you half the anime without getting my video demonetized. Nagumi Koyoshi is a 12-year-old child that is orphaned by his family and brought into the Goddess's Dormitory, where he becomes their dorm mother. Their words, not mine. Cue the ecchi and borderline crimes happening in nearly every other scene. If you're watching this anime, you know exactly why. You cannot hide from me. I'm no prude, and you're free to enjoy what other animated plot your degenerate mind so desires, but at the point where a 12-year-old child is brought into the mix, my alarms do start ringing. At the risk of losing this video's sponsor and associated ads, I'll just wrap this one up quickly by saying, if you need this anime in your life, literally nothing I'm going to say is going to change that, so go forth and conquer, my friend. Drugstore in Another World, The Slow Life of a Cheat Pharmacist is yet another entry into our summer of more isekai than was ever asked for, adapting the 2016 novel series of the same name. Pharma Isekai continues the trend of newer anime in the genre, not even bothering with Truck-kun, literally just telling us that Ryuji Kiro is an isekai resident working in a local pharmacy. He's assisted by his loyal canine companion, of course, and an actual ghost whose hair can only exist in some other plane of reality. Seriously, what is that? You might be absolutely blown away to hear this, but I was not, in fact, impressed by this isekai. Oddly enough, seeing a med-educated pharmacist start a drug empire Breaking Bad style in Another World may have actually intrigued me, but this man is more Gwyneth Paltrow than Dr. House, just solving little quirky dilemmas such as the girlfriend who's a little too cranky sometimes. If you want a lighthearted slice of life, and by that I mean you want a wolf girl and a ghost who talks about her underwear, then this might be up your alley, but it wasn't up mine. Girlfriend stars our harem hero Naoya Mukai, who starts the anime like few ever have, by actually having a girlfriend. His childhood friend, Saki Saki. Alright, childhood friend 1, anime over, let's go home. That is until Nagisa Minase confesses to him, but don't worry, he does the right thing. Begs his girlfriend on his knees to start a polyamorous relationship with both of them until she feels forced to accept. This anime is directed by Satoshi Kuuhara, which is no surprise. He also led Quintessential Quintuplets alongside Astro Boy and Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, but that's besides the point. The writer Hiroyuki is quite known in writing circles for the comic artist and his assistants, among many other successful slice of life hits. That being said, despite this anime clearly being a guilty pleasure, the type of anime everyone agrees is trash but still watches, it upset me. I have no problem with bizarre harem setups, but the main character is wholly pathetic to the point of being rage-inducing. Girlfriend exists in this space of self-aware harem that takes its overplayed genre to the logical conclusion, led by such series as Rent-a-Girlfriend and Quintessential Quintuplets. These series are far more insane and wacky than its predecessors, and yet are able to remain more grounded, telling a more relatable story about each character. However, Naoya is a sleazebag, pressuring his girlfriend into entering a polyamorous relationship with tears and hysterics, pushing past the point of comedy towards something a little more unsettling. I feel as if any character development in Girlfriend is poisoned by the coerciveness of its setup, even if it's obviously a joke. Such a comedic premise could be more enjoyable if Naoya, who I have no intention of rooting for, didn't get his way. It's another anime I don't think is bad, it just hits all the wrong buttons for my personal taste, but it may end up hitting all the right ones for you. Spirit Chronicles starts as any other isekai with a young Haruto having a date with a runaway train before meeting his childhood friend. He wakes up a young impoverished orphan in a faraway world, or rather is a young impoverished orphan in a faraway world named Rio, who mysteriously has the memories of a boy named Haruto, all while seeking the revenge for the murder of his mother. He gets caught up in a plot to steal the princess, awaken special powers, and cue fantasy isekai shenanigans. Spirit Chronicles exists as one of the few early 2010s big-name web isekai without an anime, left standing after Mushoku Tensei received its stellar adaptation. TMS Studio boasts such anime as Lupin the Third, Akira, and Tiny Toon Adventures, so you know it's in good hands. Osamu Tamasaki as a director is hit or miss, having a track record spanning decades with such hits as The Demon of the Fleeting Blossoms and Toward the Terra, and flops such as, well, nearly everything else he's directed. You may be absolutely blown away to hear this, but I was in fact not impressed by this isekai. In all fairness, Spirit Chronicles manages to do what few other in the genre do, have a protagonist that not only has a personality, but even some semblance of a backstory. A low bar to meet for sure, but one that's met nonetheless. The intrigue of multiple personalities in one body, coupled with the abilities of judo experiments passed down, broke the formula initially, but the episode eventually sat comfortably into tried and true isekai tropes of fantasy JRPG kingdoms, magic, and princesses. Haruto climbing from poverty leads you to believe that discount Kirito here may have earned his overpowered isekai protagonist stripes, but everything about the first episode leads me to believe it's no more than a magical handout. A little above the average fantasy isekai, but still too low to keep my interest. Ore Tsushima is a 1-minute short about a bunch of cats. There really isn't anything to say, you're not gonna watch it anyway. Moving on. Our hero of Peachboy Riverside is the Princess Saltarine, apparently second cousin to cross-age protagonist Ange, jaded by their regal life. She stumbles onto a rabbit demi-human who saves her from an ogre attack. Speaking of which, apparently this simple cloak is sufficient to hide the fact she's half rabbit. Okay. Anyway, said rabbit is unable to protect her, so we discover that Saltine Cracker is actually made really hot and bothered by killing, I think? It wasn't really made clear at all. Peachboy Riverside is based on the manga of the same name by Kyokyo Shinja, I hope I got that right, who is also known as the mangaka between the currently airing Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, and is also the illustrator behind the Ida 10 Deities Only No Peace, also airing this season. So somebody is taking home the tendies. It's being animated by Asahi Productions of Akudama Drive and, Hello Kitty fame under the direction of Shigeru Ueda. There wasn't particularly anything bad about Peachboy Riverside, but nothing really to praise either. The animation was serviceable for a mid-tier studio such as Asahi, but my lack of comments ought to speak volumes. The idea of a fantasy setting where humans are besieged by a horde of monsters and the main character, or one of them, has some hidden demon inside of him that lets them fight is a unique premise so long as you exclude half of every anime ever made. If the premise confuse you, that's to be expected, as apparently the episodes are being broadcast out of order, Haruhi style. Let's just hope we don't get a Peachboy Endless 8. Moving on. D-side Traumerei the animation has a premise you've likely seen before. There exists another dimension with monsters and special powers to fight them, and our stylish hero Ryui gets transported to the other side to fight them. If this sounds familiar, then there's a good reason. D-side Traumerei exists in a new class of cursed media projects, anime that only exist to promote an associated mobile gacha game. This particular Bushiroad pay-to-win goodness is animated by CG Studio Sanzigen of Bang Dream fame, and holy hell does this CG look incredible. Seriously, what artifact did they uncover, and what would it take to get this to the rest of the anime industry? The soundtrack simply can't be overlooked, feeling more in place with a far more high-profile military drama than a gacha game adaptation. Composer Kohei Tanaka, co-arranger for One Piece as well as multiple Gundam anime, had no right to craft this banger of an OST. All these accolades are well and good, but there really isn't anything left to praise. D-Side looks great and sounds even better, but it's literally built on top of a generic mobile game narrative. There's a hint of conspiracy and intrigue beneath the surface, but at the end of the day, this anime seems to be at best a demonstration that CG can be more than just a punchline. Scarlet Nexus is an action role-playing game developed by Bandai Namco Entertainment for PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. A game that I didn't have the highest of expectations for. I was quite surprised by the skillfulness of the combat and the unique heart-pounding soundtrack of Hayata Takeda. Nowadays, nearly every JRPG receives an anime adaptation at some point, but clearly Bandai has an interest in pushing Scarlet Nexus as hard as possible, literally releasing the game and anime within days of each other. Both game and anime are set in a futuristic society built around newly found human superpowers. No futuristic society would be complete without mysterious monsters, so our heroes fight the others, creatures that lurk beneath the city humans find safe. I'll give it to you straight. Scarlet Nexus is a great game with a slightly above average plot, and therefore there is little reason to watch this anime when the game exists. JRPG anime adaptations rarely succeed, as we saw with The World Ends With You last season, because the pacing of the two mediums are completely different. This first episode was not bad in any respect, but it's still a strictly inferior product, and trust me, Kasane looks better in 3D anyway. In How the Realist Hero Rebuilt the Kingdom, when our hero Soma is summoned to another world, he's instead offered as a bargaining chip to a neighboring country rather than made a hero. Having the unwavering confidence of a typical economics undergrad student, he big-brains his way out of it by taking over the administrative tasks of the kingdom and subsequently taking over as king. Instead of shield hero, we're given the neoliberal hero. You might be absolutely blown away to hear this, but I was in fact not impressed by this isekai. But that's only because I've read the light novel, and frankly I didn't feel as if it offered anything you haven't seen before. I'm a sucker for economics and stonks in my anime. I enjoyed Spice and Wolf, See the Money of Soul, and Possibility Control, and Realist Hero scratches that itch at times. Director Takashi Tatanabe does quite well with the source material, being an industry veteran. However, it falls into the same trap as nearly every other isekai that I identified in my Mushoku Tensei video, which is to simply slip into being a regular fantasy harem series by the end, forgetting its economic roots. Admittedly, I only read the first two books, and this adaptation seems to be flying through the source material, so anything could happen. As anticlimactic as it is, my verdict is to give this one the 3-episode rule, but with the warning that it's not as trend-breaking of an isekai as the opening portion would lead you to believe. The Duke of Death and his maid stars Bochan, the, well, Duke of Death, who is cursed by a witch at birth, dooming him to kill anything that he touches. His most loyal maid Alice seems unfazed by this affliction, baiting the young master into touching her in any way she can. Their macabre fascination blooms into romance, and our love story begins. The popular romantic comedy by author Koharu Inoue, The Duke of Death and His Maid, finally receives an anime adaptation from JC's staff. Sort of. While they are in charge of production, the actual animation is shipped off to Showa Kuken Music and Digital Entertainment, with Yoshinobu Yamakawa as the director, known for many projects such as High Score Girl, and you might know where I'm going with this. I'll be blunt. The Death Duke and His Maid is an engaging, fantastically written romantic comedy, telling the story of someone cursed who never touched the object of his affection, whose CG could at times be mistaken for a deleted X-Arm scene with how poorly it's executed. Originally, it seemed to be another ecchi series with vague hints of a romantic subplot, appealing to guys who want to be edged in the same way Nagatoro appealed to guys who want a girl to bully them, but quickly evolves into something far more meaningful. Alice's declaration of her intention to break the curse of the Duke, declaring he will put a ring on her with his own hands, was powerful, and was also ruined by the stifled expressions held back by the lackluster CG. Alternative animation styles are not inherently bad, and anime such as Dorohedoro proved you can make a masterpiece if you give the technology the respect it deserves. In Death Duke, nobody's faces look natural and exist in this uncanny valley where the audience can determine what emotion the characters are feeling. As surprised as I was by the writing of the anime, all this episode really did was make me want to read the manga. The Dungeon of Black Company stars Kinji, essentially the embodiment of every internet dweller's dream of living the high life, getting rich off of Bitcoin and GameStop. Of course, the glorious neat life comes to an end when our boy is isekai'd not to a life of adventure, but a life of ethically questionable wage slavery, toiling away at a mining company to try and survive. You might be absolutely blown away to hear this, but I was mildly amused by this isekai. The best way to describe this anime would be Ed, Edd and Eddy isekai, with our crafty main character devising schemes to escape his wage slavery, like discovering a brainwashing staff and using it to, enslave his co-workers? Okay, I don't remember Eddie doing something that bad. Anyway, I felt the writing was serviceable enough to make watching an anime literally about making it through a 95 relatively enjoyable, and I suppose that's a feat in of itself. I really don't have much else to say. Alright, still here? Good. While there are only a handful of bad anime this season, there are quite a few mid-tier shows. Everything after this point, I at least enjoyed the first episode. That doesn't mean they're amazing or anime you're going to stick with all the way to the end, but that does mean I recommend giving them a shot. Seeing a project through like this marathon of a video is a difficult skill to learn, but one that can be learned easily on this video sponsor Skillshare. Thomas Frank's fantastic productivity masterclass is one that has helped me learn and improve my content creation goals. The thing about productivity is that it's very personal, so if Thomas's class doesn't work out, there are dozens of other systems you can try. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creators. Explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity. Every human was born to create. Whether you last picked up the paintbrush yesterday or in grade school, you can explore your creativity and be inspired. Skillshare offers memberships with meaning. With so much to explore and real projects to create and the support of fellow creators, Skillshare empowers you to accomplish real goals. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare so you can start exploring your creativity today. While battles may only happen in 5 seconds and battle in 5 seconds after meeting, the team behind it certainly takes more than that time to explain. Seizo Harawata's source manga, which has sold a cool 2 million over 15 volumes, has published in 2 different magazines, with the anime utilizing 2 different directors while being animated by 3 different studios. The main studio, Synergy CP, being mainly known for the Beyblade franchise. Our edgy, misanthropic not Kirito of this series is Akira, who is unexpectedly pulled into an ever so simple death game where you, get this, battle 5 seconds after meeting. Who is arranging the battles and why is not explained, and it's made clear quite early on that such things are not going to be important. Battle in 5 seconds is yet another anime of this season that didn't blow me away, but otherwise impressed me. The astoundingly basic school battle anime of the mid-2000s has long passed, and for a good reason. While the quality of animation and soundtrack was serviceable, it's a cerebral nature of Akira's power that had me hooked. Series where the main character's ability is unique or otherwise unconventional is abundant, such as the Raildex series or Black Clover, but I assure you when Akira's was revealed, I was grinning ear to ear noting the potential that this concept holds. I'm not gonna spoil this twist for you, but even if you don't enjoy Battle in 5 seconds after meeting as a whole, I'll assure you, you'll feel the same. Tsukimichi Moonlight Fantasy stars our isekai hero Musume, who is revealed by the god Tsukiyomi to be the son of isekai parents themselves, who promised to give him up to be a hero of the world they were summoned from. When Tsukiyomi passes him to the new world's goddess to realize his destiny, she goes full Mean Girls and tears down his appearance head to toe, rejecting his hero status and starting his isolated otherworld adventure. See 2C Studios, yet another smaller, decade-old studio adapting just about whatever they can get their hands on, brings in the talent of Shinji Ishihara, most notable as a director behind Fairy Tail as well as Log Horizon, as to lead the project. You might be absolutely blown away to hear this, but I was impressed by this isekai. Tsukimichi can best be described as having the content of Mushoku Tensei with the comedic tone of Konosuba, and all for the better. Like Rudy, our hero Musume is certainly overpowered, punching a Cerberus in half but still retains the likability of self-deprecating pathetic losers like that of Kazuma, rather than your typical edgy, unlikable isekai fare. The OST was nothing to write home about, surprising considering the musical direction of Yasuharu Takanashi of Naruto Shippuden and Beyblade Acumen. But honestly, that's not too important, as there's breakneck comedic dialogue going on nearly every second. Never have I thought that pretending to be a whimpering simp could be the perfect distraction to slay a mighty dragon, yet here I am. Tsukimichi Moonlight Fantasy treads no new ground, but did quite well with the ground that it had, and I definitely recommend giving it a shot. Kageki Shoujo tells the most modern of stories, following a former idol child star A Narata after being cancelled online for getting a little too honest with a neckbeard fan. She attempts to reinvent herself by going to theater theater school, where she runs into the starry-eyed Sarasa Watanabe, who we are reminded over and over and over of her towering height. These two begin their totally not queer-coded relationship as we follow their quest toward dominating the Kyoka School of Musical and Theater Arts. Kageki Shoujo adapts the 2012 manga of the same name. Studio Pine Jam, a younger studio that has only so far animated 5 anime, 3 of which include exclamation marks with another on the way, leads the adaptation, and boy do they do it justice. Kageki Shoujo was a pleasant surprise for me, as it's literally the opposite of the type of anime that would normally appeal to me, but a combination of painting like art style, creative writing, and musical score had me bewitched throughout. Oh, did I mention the music? Because wow, the music! Kageki Shoujo seemingly had a different orchestral arrangement for nearly every scene. Musical director Tsuyoshi Saito had me feeling like I was watching a Final Fantasy cutscene the entire time, which ought not be surprising considering he actually contributed to Final Fantasy V's new orchestral album. Kazuhiro Yonaida's unique direction also steals the show with creative transitions, unique cinematography, and bizarre scenes like this that felt right out of Chowder. Kageki Shoujo has all the pieces to be an underrated gem this season. All it needs is to keep up the momentum. From the studio that brought you the brutality of war through Mobile Suit Gundam and the ethical tragedies of Code Geass, we have Love Live! Superstar! Accomplished director Takehiko Hoigaku attempts to bring Love Live to a new audience, aka people like me. Each entry into the Love Live franchise is more or less the same entry to entry, consisting of a group of girls who start an idol group and rise to stardom. Superstar! Is no different, telling the story of Tang pressuring protagonist Kanon Shibuya into starting one herself, with an excessive amount of drama you would associate with planning a military coup, not a school glee club. Series writer Juki Hanada and the team over at Sunrise clearly have the idol genre down to a science, creating a captivating set of characters and associated struggles to overcome, to the point where I nearly forgot I was actually enjoying an idol anime. Like it or not, flagship Sunrise properties have otherworldly budgets I only hope get funneled into next season's Kyoko Senki, so it's no surprise that both the soundtrack and animation are in the top tier of the season. No matter how much my underlying Sigma masculinity tries to deny it, I was forced to accept the harsh reality. I really liked an idol anime. The attention to detail is clearly present, but the quality of dramatic writing packed into just one episode stands above so many other series in this season trying to do the same thing. Love Life Superstar is what happens when you've run a concept into the ground so hard it emerges out the other side of the planet as an expertly honed version of itself. I'm telling y'all, if you watch this anime, your Goku and Naruto figures will not fade away and shonen will still exist. Come on, join the dark side. We have musical numbers. Remake Our Life follows the often tread yet not overdone plot of a down-on-your-luck mid-20s doomer getting another chance at life. In this case, Kyoya tells the classic millennial tale of a otaku fanboy centering his entire life on working with a couple artists in the gaming industry instead of something far more lucrative and responsible like, going to art school? Well, one day he miraculously wakes up 10 years prior to find he just has that chance. Feel Studios, most known for slice of life and romance series such as Teen Romantic Snafu, leads this project with Tomaki Kobayashi. As director, he's done tons of anime you've never heard of except maybe a Kame ga Kill, but this adaptation proves that sometimes all you need is raw experience. Remake Our Life felt like the essence of Isekai's do-over aesthetic without the unnecessary baggage of boring power systems and subpar world building, and instead tells a far more identifiable story with a realistic context. This anime will likely get compared to Tokyo Revengers, also airing now, but I think that the lack of larger scale conspiracy and mystery, as well as the lack of literal middle schoolers built like Hell's Angels actually killing each other, means that it can set itself apart with a much smaller scale narrative. I very much enjoyed Remake Our Life Episode 1, its novel-like feel being a refreshing dose of realism in a anime slate severely lacking in it. There once was a vampire called Vanitas, hated by all of the other vampires for being born under the wrong moon, causing him to write a book called The Book of Vanitas. I think this is supposed to help him get revenge. Later into the 19th century, we have our protagonist Noe, who's searching for said book until he encounters a mysterious doctor who goes by Vanitas himself. Jun Mochizuki is the creator of mega successful Victorian shonen hit Pandora Hearts, and when I say mega successful, it's one of the few manga on Mal with straight 10 out of 10 ratings down the board, without a single contrarian in sight begging to know how anyone could enjoy such irredeemable trash. She's back with her newest work, the case study of Vanitas, which also seems to be shaping up to have the same response. It's led by director Tomoyuki Itomura, director of many of the Monogatari anime. Creative influence being quite apparent in this anime. It being a Bones production, we ought to mention animation director Yoshiyuki Ito, key animation talent behind such works as Summer Wars and Cowboy Bebop. Scenes such as Vanitas' reveal and simple still shot of this woman's dress simulate the winds of her Victorian clothing for what I only believe to be a flex. All of that being said, I was rather confused by the premise, with such terminology and jargon thrown around like confetti, forcing me to back up on multiple occasions. That being said, I'm not sure any of it is actually important, as the plot mostly boils down to good vampires beat the bad ones. Although from the popularity of the manga, I can only assume it goes deeper. While this scenario doesn't immediately interest me, all the technicals behind the spectacle are on point and worth checking out to see if it's your cup of steampunk tea. In The Detective Is Already Dead, our boy Kimihiko is turned into a mule for what we can only assume is some illicit deal straight out of Mission Impossible. On the plane, he finds himself subject to a hijacking, with the hijacker putting Kimi into a Saw-like game, requiring him to figure out why the plane is being hijacked in order to, well, stop the hijacking. Luckily, our titular detective Siesta is on the case to galaxy brain her way to the answer, declaring Kimi her sidekick, and then pulling out a fantasy revolver to take down the hijacker, who also has tentacles now for some reason. Siesta and Kimi team up to solve cases, only for the episode to end with the most startling twist in all of anime. The Detective Is Already Dead. Detective Is Dead is produced by Engi, a rather young studio without much to its name, yet was able to nab a pretty big name for its director. Manabu Kiriharu is most known as a regular key animator for Bleach, as well as animation director for a large number of episodes alongside other work, and his skill comes in handy here. Detective Is Dead feels like a mix of Ace Attorney and the melancholy of Haruhi Suzumi, in that you're teased with the premise of a whodunit-like mystery only to be tossed through 5 different genres in short order as you wonder what the hell is actually going on. And I suppose that makes sense with the anime's title itself being the overarching puzzle of the show. The music by Yu Yu is honestly my high point for this anime and wonderfully set the mood for Siesta to Sherlock her way through high schoolers in giant teddy bear outfits selling heroin to children. The whole time, the beautiful art style and clean animation leaves you wondering how this unknown studio could pull this off, almost more than making you wonder why the detective is already dead. By the way, the detective is already dead. The Detective Is Dead declares that this detective is already dead, but I don't know why the detective is dead or when the detective dies, but this detective is a baffling yet mysterious character, even though it is said the detective is going to die or perhaps is already dead. I recommend giving this a shot. Remain stars Minato, forced out of water polo when his family was hit by a truck, and no, this isn't isekai. Okay, that was a really bad joke. Surprisingly, in the first episode, there wasn't actually any water polo, as Minato actually swears off the sport once waking up from his year-long coma, all memories of his junior high life gone. Mappa jumps into the pool with this entry into the overly attractive pretty boy play a sport you didn't think you would actually care about genre. Masafumi Nishida of Tiger and Bunny and Tesla Note fame sits in the director's chair, and the scriptwriter's chair, and the sound designer's chair. And how is Mappa underpaying its animators when the entire anime is made by a single guy? Chair. Remain solves what I've always seemed to be the primary dilemma in sports anime, explaining how all these children are so insanely ripped. Finally, an anime that actually acknowledges. Remain solves what I always see as the primary dilemma in sports anime: how to make characters who actually want to be more than just good at a sport. It's an easy trap to fall into, but it severely limits the type of story an anime can tell. Remain instead focuses more on building up the character of Minato and his trauma surrounding the accident. In water polo, a remain is one of the most common violations, when the ball is received within 2 meters of the goal, and it's tied beautifully to the way in which Minato and his family remain stuck in the day of the accident. I never thought I would be so invested in a water polo anime that played literally no water polo in the first episode, but it's clear that the team at Mappa knows what they're doing, and maybe they should be paid for it too. The Aquatope on the White Sands tells the story of retired 18-year-old idol Fuku Miyazawa, who finds herself led by a travel brochure and a sketchy fake psychic to the Gama Gama Aquarium. There she meets Kokuru, Okinawa native, who serves to be the most wholesome and least worrying anime girl to ever be obsessed with squid tentacles. The focus is clearly on Fuku's adult crisis, having lost her way in life, unable to continue her idol aspirations. Kokuru reveals the aquarium is failing, being unable to find new hires. Almost immediately, Fuku requests the position, clearly feeling the aquarium will fill the need needs for the meaning she's been looking for. PA Works, unequivocally a top-tier modern studio with such legendary hits as Charlotte's and Angel Beats, just to name a few, has likely created its most beautiful anime to date. Toshiya Shinohara, one of the most accomplished directors in the industry, having worked on everything from Black Butler, multiple Lupin the Third movies, A Lull at Sea, and Legend of the Galactic Heroes, leads this project in its shows. The first episode of Aquatope didn't dive deep into the larger plot of the anime, but each second we did was a mesmerizing wonder. Famed Japanese composer Yoshiaki Diwa pulls you underwater with a soundtrack that wonderfully evokes the awe of the aquarium's beauty. Color director Naomi Nakano can go ahead and take home the award for this direction. By the way, she's doing it for Chainsaw Man 2. Fuku's Lost for Purpose is one that echoes the struggles of many facing the entry into adulthood, and A Strange Job in a Far-Off Island is the perfect way to tell this coming-of-age tale. In a season saturated with nearly every flavor of basic isekai protagonist, a closer character study with mind-blowing animation is exactly what the doctor ordered, and I wholly expect PA Works to deliver. Nighthead 2041 takes place in a stock cyberpunk dystopia where all supernatural belief from magic to religion is banned and labeled thought crime. It follows the Kirahara brothers who, from a young age, were incarcerated into a secure scientific facility due to their supernatural powers, having escaped after the barrier that was preventing them malfunctions. The story also follows the Kuroki brothers, literal thought crime police, who are trying to chase the brothers down for their blasphemy. This entire anime is an enigma, based off of a 20-year-old manga of the same name and remaking 2006's Nighthead Genesis, with the studio and directing credits being as head-scratching as they come. Studio Shirahumi is probably best known for their work on the Stand By Me Doraemon movies, both of which are smash hits, but only because anything with that name attached is gonna make buko bucks over in the land of the rising sun. Director Takemitsu Hirakawa only has comedy series Itotama to his name, so I think you'll be surprised to hear that Nighthead 2041 is one of my top anime of the season, despite the fact you all seem to hate it. I've always been a sucker for cyberpunk. Hell, I put over 100 hours into the barely functioning Cyberpunk 2077 upon release. The original mangaka George Ida is on script duty for this series, and boy does he hit the world building home, drawing a stark contrast between the anti-religious police and the escaped supernatural brothers. At risk of making this video seem like a shill for the anime community's most hated pariah, the CGI is actually what put it over the top. I found myself rewinding the bar scene multiple times as the use of perspective and particle effects really drove home the fact that the technology doesn't just have a place in the medium, but belongs in the medium when it's done right. Explaining Sonny Boy is the challenge of Sonny Boy itself. Imagine Lord of the Flies, where everyone has a quirk and Picasso took a psychedelic before writing it. A high schooler is essentially removed from reality, and 36 students, now with supernatural abilities, have to survive together. The children form cliques, psionically enforce the school rules, and seem relatively unnerved by entering one of Junji Ito's novels. Sonny Boy is a demanding anime, but if you give it the time it deserves, it's a rewarding experience. Director and scriptwriter Shingo Natsume has crafted a mind-bending and surrealist tale that made me pause and think multiple times throughout this just one episode. Ensemble cast anime such as Bokurano, another anime Natsume was involved in, are some of my favorite, as they force you to wrestle with the conflicting ideas and philosophy of characters whose struggles range anywhere from petty squabbles to violent outbursts. Seeing different students declare superiority with their newfound abilities, only to be squashed like a bug by the all-controlling school rules and the associated penalty system, is a masterful piece of world building that keeps you engaged as you parse the Monogatari-esque art house dialogue that punctuates the series. Director of photography Akane Fushihara really pushes home the twisted world that these students are creating with a menagerie of different angles and experimental framings. I certainly will not pretend that I understood every word spoken in this anime, and I think anyone who tells you that they did is lying, but the imagination required to create Sonny Boy is one that deserves unparalleled respect, and why it's currently my favorite anime of the season. This series will not be for everyone. It's not something you can just sit back, relax, and enjoy, but I can easily tell we have something memorable, if not great, on the horizon. So, you made it. I made it. Summer 2021 isn't the world-shattering season like spring was, but it still offers some potential classics if you're willing to dig deep enough. Hopefully not to your surprise, I just want to get this video over with, so thanks everyone for watching all the way to the end. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.